Well, hello, creatives, community, and kind folks. Welcome to RPG with DBJ. I am your host for this Future Friday. Um, I am DBJ, and we are here to talk about transhumanist gaming at the tabletop game. Yes, we are here to talk about various subjects each and every Friday, and especially every day during the week, Monday through Friday. This show we go live. It is essentially your only tri-cast podcast, long form. Live interactive show on the internet hosted by me. Yes, it is the only one. This Future Friday, we are going to talk about biotechnology. Now, biotechnology is a big subject, and just to give you a little bit of context, we take a subject and we talk about it all week long, more generally in classic Dungeons and Dragons and other gaming formats about a particular subject, and that subject was alchemy. But today we are talking more or less about biotechnology because I felt alchemy doesn't quite fit in with transhumanist gaming, but biotechnology does. Now, it is a huge subject. Biotechnology and science fiction covers a lot of ground. So forgive me and the rest of us who participate in the show live that there may be something you wanted to talk about when it comes to biotechnology. And we may glance over it a little bit because we only have about an hour to talk about it. Let's see. Tesla Ranger starts us off with biotech is better played with an eclipse phase. Many of the most powerful morphs are synthetic and cheaper in credits, but not bill points, than equally strong biomorphs. But biomorphs are easier for transhuman egos to adjust to, and many polities discriminate against synthmorphs. That is a perfect way to start with biotechnology. I mean, the conceit of transhumanist thinking anyway is that we have essential practical immortality, right? We have a cortical stack. We can insert ourselves in another biological body. And even with the gaming statistics, it's far easier for human beings to adjust to a biological body than a synthetic body. Despite, as Tesla Ranger points out, synthetic bodies are easier to produce. They are synthmorphs and pods are off the shelf, basically, if you want to. They can be constructed in factories, and it makes you wonder, like, well, if that's the case, why wouldn't every person just go into a synthmorph? Well, it's more detailed than that, right? It's the fact that it's easier and psychologically more stable to arrive in and live in a biological body, but it costs more resources and is more labor intensive, and it's more intensive with calculations and such. We love the idea of, oh, I wake up inside of a biological body and I come out of a pod with goo, and I've got all these extra additions to my body giving me combat abilities and things, but we fail to realize exactly how much calculation would require to build from scratch a biological body in the first place, and then do it consistently without mistakes. It's pretty daunting, right? So biotechnology in eclipse phase and altered carbon and so on and so forth is pretty daunting, and it's one probably great reason for why there are still infugees out there. There are still people in cold storage because it takes a lot of time and energy and resources to build a biological body for these people to arrive in, when there's so many other things that need to be done out there. And of course, since humanity now has the time and energy and resources to do it, maybe over time everyone will eventually be taken out of cold storage, but within the time frame that we're given, there's a lot of cold storage and very few bodies out there, unless the corporations step in, and that's that's where you get our clanking masses and such. Rickard says, as we talked about alchemy during the rest of the week, and now we're talking about biotech, do you want to bring up stuff like eye drops that give night vision and such as well? Yes, I did want to begin with the idea that biotechnology doesn't need to be grand, meaning like a fully formed combat morph with like enhanced adrenaline. There are plenty of biotech assets that player characters can can either acquire or enemies can use. Like you said, eye drops to give night vision. Maybe there are biological modifications like human body needs to survive the Arctic wastes in on Earth or something like that. Oh, I'll just drink this concoction that alters my lungs to allow me to breathe underwater, or something that I can drink that turns my skin so that it is resistant against harmful blazing UV radiation or something. Maybe there's a terrorists may be able to drink biological concoctions that will turn their body into a viral morass of goo given an hour or something that basically turns them into something that is acidic and dangerous once they drink it. Or maybe there's so many ways to modify the body on the fly. And while a player character may arrive in a particular habitat and the body they arrive in may not have the functions that they want, maybe it's possible for them to get through black market or through firewall or through some if you're talking about altered carbon, I'm sure there's plenty of black market assets where sure your body isn't modified now, but if you just take these few things, you can modify them. And it might be necessary to do that because if the player characters need to, say, sneak into a particular highly regulated location, if the body you're now sleeved inside of might be restrained, it's the idea of the police stopping you for wearing body armor if you're walking down the street. Sure, it's not illegal, but if you're wearing Kevlar armor, you're expecting trouble, right? Like that's the reason why the authorities would want to stop you if you're wearing Kevlar. It's like, all right, are you expecting to get shot at? Because maybe you're one of these people who wants to start the shooting instead of defending yourself, right? And so if you show up somewhere in a combat morph, they're going to look you up and down like, we just scanned you, dude. What's going on, right? So maybe you need to be in a nondescript biological body, but then in your back pocket, you've got things to modify yourself as well. Deadman says biotech in Eclipse phase is done by jumping in a healing vat and spending a couple hours and a few thousand credits. That is another thing as well. And I did want to bring up the fact that while we're talking about all of this, we're talking about biotechnology working perfectly. What happens when it doesn't work perfectly? You are way out in the Oort cloud and you beam your consciousness back to Mars and you arrive there, I don't know, months later. I don't know how long it takes to beam for light from the Oort cloud to reach Mars, but I'm reaching out of my ass for this one. But you arrive months later and you arrive in your biological body and you wake up. Who's to say that, I don't know, a mistake wasn't placed into your biological sleeve, or that some sort of, much like humanity today, we're talking about COVID-19 and coronavirus, and despite we're talking about that, there's still plenty of other diseases that roll around. Why wouldn't there be a techno disease that affects biological materials that might be going around, and it happens to float around for a month every, I don't know, every Martian season or something, and they're like, oh man, we need to sterilize all the vats, and there's, we have on record as many as 50,000 or more people that woke up in biological bodies and they're sleeved in them. We need to contact them because they've all probably got the disease or something. And why wouldn't a techno disease spread in that? Well, I mean, I think that's a great story idea as well. Um, Omen says, one question: will the modifications wear off for convenience, or is it permanent? Because in more solid games like Shadowrun or 40K, such changes are often permanent and come with consequences. In games like Mutants and Masterminds, however, a game about superheroes, it's easily dismissed. And he goes on to say there was a nanomachine. There was the nanomachine swarms of the Warframe uh, MMO and the Technocyte Plague. You know, uh, a great story thread is this idea that um, much like mechanical things can break down over time, um, the corporations in the Eclipse Phase world do have, I believe it's like, um, oh, it's whenever I go live, my brain always farts on this. There is planned obsolescence when it comes to biological modification, meaning that let's say you want to slip into that combat morph and you're like, yeah, I'm going to get my guns and I'm going to combat morph and everything. It there there is a there are factions that specifically build biological morphs that fail in a specific amount of time on purpose because you're renting them. You don't own them, you rent them, and it's much like it's the same concept as computer printers, right? Oh, we'll give you a printer for free, but the ink's going to cost you $80, right? The same thing goes with biomorphs as well. Like, yeah, you can get this biomorph, it'll live for 3 years, and you better re-up with us with a lot of credits if you want to keep continuing to live. You like that I don't know, those adrenal glands and that's synthocardium in your chest that makes you run I don't know 80 kilometers an hour or something like and jump 500 feet or whatever. Great. uh you're going to start to have a heart attack in about 3 minutes now because it's going to fail. Pay up, and we'll inject you with what you need, or get that new body if you do something for us. Right? Criminal organizations doing that. Various political factions, corporations. Yeah, a lot. Rickard says maybe you have a pill that makes you process sensory information much faster, making it seem like the world around you slows down. If you guys have ever watched if you guys have ever watched The Expanse, they have a truth. Okay, it's not a truth serum, but it's something the law enforcement takes as a small pill that opens up the individual's senses so that they can see the person they're interrogating and catch all of the um, micro inflections someone makes when they lie. The sweat, their heart rate, their pulse, the heat coming off of their body, the dilation of their eyeballs. It basically allows you, it's not, I'm sure it's a combination of a number of things, but essentially what it does is it allows you to hyper focus on the individual you're talking to find out if they're lying or not. That's a perfect example. Yeah, and I absolutely would agree that there would be a well, for the outside world, it would be a speed booster, like again, like I don't know, some kind of a adrenal boost or something. But for the individual taking it, it's as if the world slows down, right? Maybe you don't move faster, but you're able to react to things mentally faster, so it looks as if you seem faster, right? Um, Although I could imagine someone taking it and uh, tearing some tendons or muscle fibers or something because the human body might not be able to keep up with what the mind wants the body to do. Rickard goes on to say the upside to this style of biotech rather than the hardware version is you can play with drawbacks and withdrawals. Oh, hell yeah. And again, because like last week we talked about trust, right? Player characters arrive in a station. Of course, they want to be geared up and like combat morphed with my big guns and stuff. And maybe they arrive in off the shelf biological bodies, and they're told by some kind of agency they're working for, or criminal organization or something, like, dude, you arrived and I know you were thinking this, but there's no morphs like this waiting for you. But what we do have are are um the equivalent of Dungeons and Dragons potions, right? Like, oh, I can take this thing to modify my body to do this other thing. And again, playing with the drawbacks and the withdrawals and things, maybe a player character needs to temporarily become immune to harm, like they feel literally no pain, or um, a character is an assassin and they want to poison someone, but they can't sneak the chemicals in except putting the chemicals inside of their own body, turning their blood, caustic or something. And that would be really cool for the players to have to figure out, like, literally you have to go into this place naked, but you have to ingest certain chemicals inside of your body. Which biologically enhancing or dangerous things do you ingest to go into a place knowing that you're some paranoid criminal crime lord is like, yeah, you want to talk to me, you got to strip down before you come into our sauna, right? That way you're not wearing, we want to make sure you're not wearing a wire, you're not carrying any weapons and things. And you're like, sure, I'll come in naked, but I've been modified, right? Pet Ogre says, it's worth remembering that biotech isn't just high-tech modding of humans and viruses. It's not just all clone vets and nanomachines, right? Yep. It's also band-aids. It's genetic identification of a suspect. Yeah, it is depending on the fidelity of the people modifying biotech, you could even create a virus that literally goes after one specific individual, right? Like, we're going to take your specific DNA and modify something just to kill you. Deadman says, infestation of a living natural organism and the transformation of its molecular structure happens much more rapidly than with large synthetic ships or machinery. I agree with you on that one. Infested nanites quickly break down organic tissue and begin to evolve the existing specimen into a new organism with characteristics and functions ideal for survival and self-defense. In many cases, visible traces of the victim's original form are still visible in the new mutated form, a stark and horrifying memorial. Taken from the Warframe wiki about the infested. And yeah, that's where we start to blend in, especially Eclipse phase has the exigent virus, right? It is a somewhat undefined alien virus that has very strange and bizarre vectors for people to get it. And then we start to blur the line between, oh, I'm just a scientist experimenting, to maybe you're experimenting with the exigent virus, and we all know that's dangerous, right? And yes, Warframe is definitely, whether you like the game or not, great concept art. And the blurred line between nanotechnology and biotechnology, of course, is there as well. I mean, nanotechnology is basically programmed molecular structures. So in many ways, nanotechnology and biotechnology are almost one and the same if you're thinking about it. Ogre's like, not fully undefined for us GMs. Right? Yeah. Oh, Eclipse Phase for the GM section goes out of its way to say, we're going to give you hints, but you decide where all this stuff comes from, or maybe not. Yep. Yeah. Omen says, "Are you sure you're not not interesting something else? Maybe you're just interested in seeing my enhanced man parts." Ooh, wow. Yeah, ultra Viagra or something, right? Now, Rickard says, increasing your oxygen capacity in your bloodstream and at the same time slowing down your heartbeat so you don't need to breathe for a long period of time. Ooh, especially if you have to survive like long stretches of transportation. You've got a 3-month voyage. That's where stasis comes from. You could also pretend to be dead so that maybe your body's put on ice so that you could sneak into some place, like the morgue, and then all of a sudden you wake up. There could be biological enemies could use biological modifications to, of course, track the authorities tracking who you are, criminals um, using something to go after their adversaries in a criminal organization to take them out so that their enemies somehow get sick. They contract something, maybe reducing their immune system, or um, like Rickard is mentioning, maybe the player characters need to take something because they're going to modify the air quality in a habitat, maybe causing people to pass out through lack of oxygen, or thinning the atmosphere, or pumping something poisonous in there. And so you could take something that might filter particular chemicals out of your lungs and whatnot. So I love the idea of even a player character focusing on, I'm not going to, my body isn't permanently modified, but I have a lot of concoctions that I can pick and choose from, i.e., the alchemist, right? We were talking about earlier this week, and then that person uses those, blends the different things that they have, either because they have their own lab, or they've got they get things off the black market, they've got connections with a major corporation or something, and then they use that to modify themselves. And then all of a sudden, when the authorities come and they see 16 people ripped limb from limb, and they look at the player character, he's like, it couldn't have been me. Look at me. I'm just a weakling. It couldn't have been me. Right? Yeah. Deadman says Warframe also has like nano weapons shooting nanite swarms like a flamethrower. There, one part of transhumanist gaming that is a little problematic, in a good way, is how do player characters fight off nanotechnology? You can't see it. It's usually programmed to perform a specific function. You're definitely going to, not definitely, it would behoove you as the game master to suggest to the players that they might need to have what are known as nano hunters, basically nanotech, and to survive a mission, they might need to do a specific thing to get some nano hunters, because they know, little by little, maybe they're being taken apart with, their nervous system is starting to fail them, and they're like, oh my god, we've been infected by these nanites. We need to go get the nano hunters to get it excised out of our system to keep on going. Or the player characters are all trapped on Tager. Yeah. The player characters might be trapped on a habitat where people are panicking because some kind of nanotech has been spreading through the air system, and now they've all got it, including the player characters. And maybe the mission is to do something before everyone breaks down into nasty internal organ and sludge, right? Or pilot the starship into the sun before the exigent virus could escape out some kind of way or something, right? Yeah. Yeah. Ricker says EMP is your friend. Hell yeah. Ricker says maybe you have an operation in a hostile environment with you. Oh, maybe you have an operation in a hostile environment and you couldn't breathe the atmosphere. Again, I'm going to say it again. It's a weird thing to say, but hey, game masters out there, don't be afraid to kill your player characters off, right? If they can come back through beaming their consciousness off, saving their cortical stacks and whatnot, it's the perfect game. It's the perfect game to set up TPK scenarios. And if your if your players are into it, right? Suicide missions, or at least missions they know where they won't come out of it intact. What a great one-off adventure, right? Like, hey, listen, you know what? You're going to have to go to a place. Hey, you're in a biological body, and you're going to have to go to Titan, or the atmosphere of Venus, or some kind of exoplanet after going through the rings or something. I'm looking at you, the Expanse and the Pandora Gates in Eclipse Phase, or the other planetary systems in Altered Carbon, right? And you arrive there, and now all of a sudden the enemy is out there in the hostile environment. You don't have a vac suit. Maybe you temporarily drink something, or apply something to your skin, or you open up a bottle and a strange mist comes around your body, but it's really nanotech that temporarily modifies your body to go out there to that hostile environment. And you've only got 15 minutes and 14:59. You better go, right? Yeah, and when it comes to stopping nanotech, I'm pretty sure, unless they're what do you call von Neumann machines, that either EMPs or like specific like um, radiation waves probably can cancel that kind of stuff out. Because no one wants wild nanotech running around. So maybe there's a specific radio signal, or you know, EMP, where EMP grenades are a real thing as well, to keep the nanotech from breaking your body apart. Rickard says, I mean, if you have offsite storage, especially with instant memory backup, it's almost mandatory to kill the players at least once during a campaign. Yeah, and and you guys understand that I love complications when it comes to like missions and things. Imagine, okay, you as the player character can't. Uh, the player characters have to arrive at a habitat that has hyper tight security. So instead of bringing weapons and other things in, maybe the player characters have to go out into the hostile environment because someone left their weapons and other modifications to their bodies outside the habitat. So maybe the player characters have to leave the habitat, go out into the caustic. I don't know. They're in the caustic upper area region of Venus. They're in flight suits, knowing that the sulfuric acid in the air would probably destroy their flight suits in 15 minutes and counting, to arrive at a drone floating there that's flying under the radar, literally, to gather their items, to bring them back to the habitat to be used for their mission, because they couldn't bring them in normally or something, right? Like you could make a lot of complications involved in it. Or player characters like, oh, I want to arrive on Mars and get in my combat morph. And great, you arrive there, but guess what? One of your criminal contacts is like, yeah, dude, listen, you're in your combat morph, but I'm just letting you know there's also a micro bomb in the back of your head. And yeah, I put it there. And listen, it's just a thin membrane, and all I got to do is give one little code to my muse, and boom, the little capsule will break, and it'll just spill acid right down on your cortical stack unless you do what I tell you to do, right? And it's just a little one-off mission. Don't worry about it. When you cast out of here, I wouldn't even worry about it. But right now, you need to do something for me. I've got a little chip. I need you to insert it into the mainframe of the corporation. That's all you need. Like you could set up situations where the player characters may not even want to get into a biological body, especially if some kind of a disease, or like manufactured disease or virus, is running rampant in a habitat. So now the players are like scrambling, like, we need a synthetic body to get into. And depending on what kind of character you make, maybe psychologically you might have to make the decision, like, do I go into a synth morph, but it's gonna, really throw my mind off, or do I go into the biological morph, knowing that my body's going to start to break down and not work the way I want it to? Decisions. Yeah. Omen is. Sorry about that. Omen says, in the game Cthulhu Tech, there are these creatures called taggers, or taggers. It's not clear if they're wearing living bio armor or it's just nanomachines. And then Deadman put in an image of the tagger, which looks pretty nasty. Exigent creature, any combination thereof, I'm into it. Although the way it looks, I'm sure player characters like, hell yeah, blades all over my body. They're, they're heroic? Ooh, that's, well, you know what? Historical angels look pretty nasty too, yeah. Omen's like, they're heroic in the same way Space Marines in 40K are. That's very tongue in cheek, yeah. Oh man. Rickard says uh, referring to as it's almost mandatory to kill the players at least once during a campaign. It says otherwise it's like giving each of the players vorpal blades uh, and doing an all talk campaign. Yeah, I mean, if you're going to bother having a world with cortical stacks, you better have a reason to use them, right? Yeah, just I don't know. It's a weird thing to think about, but you know, blowing off a PC's leg or spilling acid on them or having some nanovirus grow some kind of xenomorphic alien and have it burst out of their chest or something, that should just be a normal thing. Yeah. Now with biotechnology, of course, you could gift the players um various things in each of these games, Altered Carbon, The Expanse, Eclipse Phase, Transhuman Space through GURPS. There's no real leveling system. You just acquire experience points and raise your character, but characters' capabilities and skills and things like that. But one great thing would be to gift the players blueprints, like biological blueprints, so that when they arrive in certain areas, um, when they beam their consciousnesses, when they arrive in their biological bodies, maybe they are able to overclock the biological systems, giving them increased strength or toughness or increased adrenal powers. Like for example, in our own human bodies, we have a I don't know the medical term for this. We have a consciousness system and an unconscious system. And the unconscious system is our ability to shed heat in our heartbeat, our blinking. Like we can consciously control it, but then after a while, we blink unconsciously, right? And the way we digest food, the way we biologically breed, like a lot of that stuff is unconscious. But imagine if you could control all of that. I can control my blood flow. I can control how hot or cold my body is to get past heat sensors. And so maybe those are little gifts as a game master you can give to the players. Like, yeah, you got dumped into a NAT, NAT, a NAT human body. But here's a little modification that came along with your stack, where you're able to control the pain thresholds or something of that nature, or you can very instantly dump adrenaline into the body for your fight or flight reflexes or something, or what have you, or increase the senses that you have to a heightened effect, right? Or what is it called? Synthesasia, where you can it's wrong of me, but it's where maybe you can increase your vision by shutting off all of your other senses temporarily, so that you have basically like super senses, like Daredevil, but only one sense at a time or something. Um, Dead Man goes on to say, quote, these things may fight for us, but only due to the little shred of humanity that still makes them scarcely sane, taken from the Cthulhu Tech Wiki, which is you could really play with the zombie trope as well, where the player characters could be trapped on a habitat with a bunch of, like, imagine the player characters are supposed to do like a very simple bodyguard mission, and there's some important dignitaries and everyone's dressed in the equivalent of black tie and a black tie affair on a starship, much like a cruise ship, and then something breaks out. And all of a sudden, people start transforming, and what little humanity they had starts getting eaten away by the bestial power of them, as like bone spurs start growing out of them, and jaws start to distend, and they start shape changing, and the PC starts scrambling down hallways that are caked with blood and effluvia and internal organs that wrap around your throat, there things like that. Like that would be pretty nasty, especially if the PCs are like, we need to get the hell out of here. And the local authorities are like, hell no, we're going to shoot this thing down with a couple of random nukes. Yeah, looking at you, Jovians. Yeah, like hell yeah, that's your own damn fault, right? The angels and angels. Yeah, take it for. Oh man, yeah, it was almost like, wait a damn minute. Cthulhu Tech. Yeah, definitely. If even though definitely a lot of stuff you can pull from Cthulhu Tech. Oh, what happened to the image? Definitely a lot of things you can pull from Cthulhu Tech that you can import into many of your other games. Now, oh, okay, no problem there, Tesla. Now, the okay, Rickard says scenario part one: players wake up in a habitat with bomb balloons around their necks. Ooh, yeah, and are given instructions by an anonymous voice that they need to follow, else the voice will blow the collars. Suicide Squad, anyone? Part two: when the voice doesn't know it is when what the voice doesn't know is that the players have off-site storage and a tight beam to the storage that updates their backup every hour. Like that. Part three: how long does the PC go along with it before they trigger the collars themselves and wake up in their backup bodies? I love that. I love that so much because guess what? It's in the player's hands, and maybe, just maybe, they need to go along with it until they uncover who it is that's telling them what to do. And the PCs are like, great, trigger, boom, blow their own heads off, wake up in their new bodies, and they're like, yeah, hell yeah, let's get this guy, right? And that's again, death is just another state of being in transhumanist gaming, and I love it. I love it so much because um, it's a weird way to remove death out the game and still make it a viable choice for the player characters to do a thing, right? Um, Player character pilot starship into the sun. Why? Because I can, right? I'm still going to be alive. I just beam my consciousness off and or update my old stack while just before I leave, or something, or hell, the PCs need to scramble their way to find I don't know, I guess it would be like a beaming attachment you can apply to your neck so that it could beam your consciousness as close to real time as possible before piloting that ship into I don't know, Venus's atmosphere or something to kill yourself. Yep, Eclipse Phase Suicide Squad crossover. Hell yeah, yeah, yeah. Jader's like, this is a nice detour away from the typical news right now. Yeah, I, I if you guys haven't realized, I try to make every show as independent from so that anybody could jump in anywhere on any episode of any of these shows, and they're not specifically based on anything that's going on right now. I mean, yeah, I'll make a reference here and there, but not specifically to that. So yeah, Jader, and thank you very much for all you've done to make this Discord server what it is. So thanks, dude, man. I really appreciate it. Omen's like, yeah, but what is a bone spur? Are they like little uh, keratin spurs that poke out after doing your nails? I don't know. Hmm. It- Now, if it's real bone, it might not be as tough as you think it is. But with biotechnology, I'm sure if you get a bone spur, you can make it as tough as like carbon fiber or something like that. Yeah. Yep. Bone spur. Well, we really don't want a real bone spur, but the enhanced biotech version of a bone spur is probably pretty nasty, especially if it's the Wolverine style. Like, hey, you grow bone spurs out of your elbows and your forearms and stuff as blades. Yeah, does it hurt when it comes out? Like, yeah, every single time, as Wolverine used to say. Yeah. Now, the the while the player characters are going to love to really enhance themselves with a hell of a lot of biotechnology, story wise, we do have this issue where, again, there's, I don't know, would you say tens of millions of people? In Altered Carbon, I'm not exactly sure what the statistics are, but there's lots of people who are sitting around like, what about my biological body? Where am I going to be? And if the player characters want to be more like anarchists or liberators, it's possible that maybe the player characters are trying to steal the biological blueprints to allow human beings who are on ice to get their bodies printed out. Um, or maybe there's a criminal faction that is keeping people's blueprints of their bodies on ice specifically to get them to do um, commit crimes for them, basically to repay a debt. It's the equivalent of you, you wake up in a synthetic body and you're like, what the hell happened to me? And you're all nightmared out. And someone's like, oh, I've got right here in a little chip your biological body, and you'll get that back. You and your loved ones, you'll get it back, but you got to do something for me first. And oh, by the way, I put you in a Terminator body, right? Like I gave you all the onboard weaponry and super senses and stuff, but psychologically, you're like, my mind is going to break if I stay in this body long enough. I need to get my biological body back, right? Yeah. Yes, Tesla. On the show Andromeda, the Nietzscheans had bone blades. The Nietzscheans, yep, based off of Nietzsche. And yes, they did have bone spurs, bone blades, basically, or you know what I mean. The far future version of the bone spur. Uh, Ogre's like, what a weird take on the Hangover, on the Hangover movies transhumanism could give us. Yeah, we brought that up in our talk about trust, but maybe we can go on to something. We could talk about that more. Basically, like the Hangover in transhuman gaming. Like you wake up, now figure out what the hell happened to you, right? And it pretty easy to do. Um, but yeah, Rickard's like, not really based on Nietzsche though. Well, it's sci-fi. Well, it was a very cheaply made show, Andromeda. Great concept, but yeah, not quite based on Nietzsche. But whatever. Uh, Rickard says it's an it's an interesting way to make it so that the players won't be afraid of death, because now death of their old body is part of the solution. You could say that it might be cool, but how many times have we broken bone spurs after impaling someone with his bone claws? Yeah, pretty nasty. Although we kind of glossed over the fact that, like, wait, when Wolverine's bones came out of his hands, they were all jagged, but when he's got blades, they're smooth. How did that happen? How did it go from one to the other? But story wise, player characters stealing biological information, enemies using biological creations against them. Of course, we have alien infestations, which are really a really great thing. You could have uh, micro modifications of people affecting their sleep cycles, affecting their digestive system. Uh, oh, Omen. Yeah, although both look painful for Logan. I mean, yeah, when they basically explain in Logan that when his healing factor was starting to break, the Logan the movie, that his hands would start to bleed, and that came in the comic books quite a few times when Wolverine's lost his healing factor. Whenever his blades poked out of his skin, it's literally ripping through his skin every single time, which might be a reason why in the old Wolverine character, his blades would come out and he'd be a little enraged because it hurts so much. Um, but micro modifications of people is a thing. For example, people working in the belt who are miners, like they're doing excavating and things, and the overbearing corporation wants everybody to take these supplements that affects their biological bodies to make them want to work harder and work longer hours, but it's also shortening their lifespans or something. You could have these little various different things, uh, adjusting to gravity and calcium deficiency, right? We take it as a fact that in all science fiction, that gravity and calcium deficiency and atrophy of muscles, including the heart, is just we figured out a way around it. But what if somehow there's a shortage of those materials, or they are very expensive to get, so that in the outer rim it's given away for free. In the inner rim, you have to pay for it, and maybe the players are anarchists and they're just like, pay for it. It's a human right to have um, Cal Hack or whatever it is, or NutriBoost or whatever the case may be. We're gonna steal a ship that has a boatload of this stuff, and we're gonna take it to the inner system and give it away for free so that people can survive or something. What else? What are some other little minor adjusting to various states of gravity, adjusting from zero gravity, light gravity, to standard like 1.0 G or even heavier Gs. For example, player characters have to be on a fast attack ship or something, and under constant acceleration, they have to accelerate into the system or out to the Oort cloud or something. And the only way they can survive, or at least function, is to take a certain type of biological thing that allows their bones don't break while they're under constant acceleration. And oh, by the way, um, hilarity ensues when the PCs are attacked by some kind of uh, viral outbreak or mechanical intrusion or something of that nature, and so they're under constant acceleration, and literally trying to walk around could break their ankles and their rib cage and whatnot. And if as long as they can inject these things into their bodies, maybe it thickens their blood. I don't know how that would work, but how it works, I could not tell you. But making it a thing that the player characters need to inject in themselves to continue the fight, hell's yes. So biotechnology, again, just really picking little bits and pieces to add to the game and use it when it comes to biological obsolescence, where the player characters, sure, you have your body, but maybe it only lasts for a short amount of time, or something exposed into the air or water or food of a particular habitat, or a protest is going on. The authorities have cut off particular supplements or additives or something into the food or water system, or hell, maybe just a simple fact that, hey, PCs, I know you wanted to arrive in a biological body, but there just aren't any left. It's too the resources necessary to print out and I say print, but to print slash grow a biological body just aren't available in a habitat with only 3,000 people in it, right? We only have so many materials, and our 3D printers, all the trace elements it takes to print out a standard human, yet one modified, it's too resource intensive. So we've got a Nova Crab and a couple of other slither morphs or whatever for you to slip into. It's going to take about 4 days for your biological body to print. So it's up to you. What do you want to do? Right? Like there's a lot of that as well. As a matter of fact, you could even have a mission where the player characters are uh, the hab they're associated with tells you, oh, we don't have a problem printing out a biological body. We just don't have the materials to do it. But here's a map and here's a list, and go out there and print out get the trace materials you need for a human body. As we mentioned before earlier in the week, uh, you could measure out all the materials needed to print a human being. PCs go gather it together, bring it back to the hab. The scientist at the hab is like, cool, I get to print a human body, slaps all the stuff in the 3D printer and gets to going, right? That'd be pretty fun, especially if this is like a multi-stage adventure where the PCs are in synthetic bodies, but they're picking up like nitrogen and iron and that kind of stuff. um, yeah, Deadman says, Logan Wolverine breaks the bones in his claws many times in the comics. His regeneration factor keeps them from coming out broken later. Oh, hell yeah. Yeah. Yeah, he has broken them off, which it's kind of nasty too. Breaking his bones off into somebody. Like, yeah, I'm not just going to impale you, but I'm going to like rip into your body, break the, well, of course people have stepped on his claws and broken them off that way, but yeah. But yes, they're a pretty nasty thing to do. And as a matter of fact, why wouldn't, I mean, that's kind of a cool player character option too. Like, not only can I grow the bones out of my skin, but I can also like stab somebody with them and have them maybe grow inside of somebody else's body or something like that. Although you would leave some DNA evidence behind, but oh, who cares? Rickard says, instant 5e barbarian to keep rage. Retract the claws and bring them out again. Instant damage to keep rage going. Yeah. Man. Jader says, if I have a non-bio body, I want it to be something really cool, like a drone that can fly and turn invisible. If I'm stuck in C-3PO, I'm not happy. Yeah, C-3PO is kind of a case morph yep. Dead man got there before I did. Yeah, C-3PO would be a case morph. Perfect example of one, right? Off the shelf. As a matter of fact, the very first Star Wars movie, A New Hope, had the Ewoks had a whole ton of case morphs stuck up in their ship. So yeah, just don't have a bad motivator, which I think could be fun all on its own with a player character trying to both go on a mission but try to find like replacement parts or not. Replacement temporary fixed parts for their body. They're like, oh my god, my leg went dead again. Here's a part. Fix. Tesla says somebody doesn't know how to use their new morph. Yeah. We've yes, you can hand wave player characters slipping in and out of different morphs, but there's also, there's a reason why there are rules for some player characters not having the ability to adapt to their new morph instantly. So like Jader's saying, if I have a non-bio body, you want to be in something cool, probably for you, you're like, I don't care if I don't have arms and legs. I just want to be able to fly and turn invisible. Where other people are like, I need to see my hands and feet. Otherwise, I can see my brain breaking, right? So, but anyway, guys, we are coming to the end, and I do have to go off to work. Thank you for joining me. I know we hinted, we touched pretty surfacely on a lot of biotech, but I hope you guys had some really cool ideas. I loved what Rickard came up with. Like, basically, the only way really to complete the mission is to basically blow your own head off or whatnot. Putting intention timers as well, people's biological bodies breaking down, maybe stealing biological information by specifically injecting it into your body. Maybe a PC wants to expose the horrors that are happening on some far off habitat that's unlisted. So in order to prove it, they need to inject it in their body and then get it off site. Or maybe the player characters aren't infected in the first place. And much like turning into the classic zombie apocalypse, they realize that, we've been infected ourselves. Oh, well, maybe we're just going to have to complete the mission as fast as possible before our own bodies break down. Again, gifting the PCs with biological modifications they can use later on in the game when they transfer from place to place, when they cast up and whatnot, and flowing a little bit into altered carbon. Maybe there are, much like Takashi has been in a number of combat morphs, maybe the player characters have a desire to find a specific combat morph, right? In the second season, Anthony Mackie's body was a known combat morph. As a player character or as a game master, maybe you can find some real life people, like some models out there, male, female, or otherwise, that are representative of specific type of biological morphs that the players might want to be inside of, and give them some really cool names, like, you know, here's the Ultramorph, or here's the Mercury, or here's the Olympian, or something like that. So anyway, guys, have a great one. I will see you bright and early Monday morning on RPG with DBJ. Everybody have a great one. See ya. Bye. Thank you for watching. I'm out.